like it hot, but we like it raw. Get ready for raw Nirvana. We have a special raw treat for you today. We have David Wolfe here with us, also known as Avocado, and he is a world-renowned author of many raw books. So this is David's latest book, and I'm going to turn over to him, and he's going to tell everybody about that lovely goodness.
Here we go. You ready?
Yes.
All right. Our special guest today is me. And it's great to be on the show with you two. It's always a lot of fun. And I'm out promoting this book, which has been out for about 8 years now. And this book is the Sun Food Diet Success System. And it's been near and dear to my heart for all that time. And this is the 6th edition. What we're doing here is we're making raw food nutrition available to people as an option. Because you can pick this book up and you can say, okay, I don't know anything about organic food, never heard of a health food store, and it will take you all the way from the beginning all the way to the end, right where you want to be, which is perfect health, having a nice smile on your face, and feeling good all the time. That's the idea here.
Yeah, what I like about this book is that you actually give you can work with it. Like you have questions and you recommend journaling with it, which I'm doing as I read it, which I really am enjoying. That way you get a hands-on and not only just thinking about, you actually get a chance to reflect on it. That way you can move forward easier and you can learn that way. So I really like that.
That's a really good point. I mean, part of this book has been as a success book, meaning that you create a little journal for yourself and then you go through it and it's like you write your goals down, you put your food goals down, your health and weight goals down, and you interact with it so it's 3-dimensional. A lot of books are just 2-dimensional.
Right.
And that's one of the reasons why we put like the big bright pictures in there and lots of little action steps in there to make it fun and enjoyable. And it's also designed for kids, it's designed for adults, it's designed for elderly people. Really anybody can pick it up and access it. After going through 6 editions of this book, I found every little kind of sentence I didn't like or something that needed to be changed a little bit, and I'm really, really happy with this version of it.
Awesome. I'm glad to be reading it at the moment, so thank you.
Great.
What do you think catapulted you into raw food? What do you think introduced you?
It probably started out when I was a really young child, about 7 years old. We first came to California, and my uncle bought a ranch in East San Diego. And we planted fruit trees on his ranch, and that was the first time I ever picked a fruit off a tree and ate it, and it was a revelation. It was a taste sensation, and I believe it was that instant that oriented me towards natural foods. And since then, I've always known that if I ever felt sick, I would just drink orange juice, and fresh orange juice. And eventually, when I started buying my own food, about 18, 19 years old, I was introduced by a girlfriend to organic food, and the next thing you know, a few years later, I got into raw food, and then a few years after that, I started eating only raw food, and now it's been 13 years of eating only raw food.
Wow. And how do you feel? How's it? What's it done for you? Like.
Oh, I feel the best ever. Okay. I mean, it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
And it's actually experiential. It's really difficult for people who feel awful all the time to really understand what it's like to feel great always. Never feel sad, never feel depressed, ever. Those emotions have been completely eliminated from my life well over a decade. Excuse me, well over a decade now. So I found that raw food is a really, really valuable piece of the puzzle because it's high vibrational food. It's fruits, vegetables, nuts and seeds in their natural raw state, seaweed, life-giving, rejuvenating sprouts, superfoods, herbs, all the things that we know are really good for us. Well, what would happen if we ate only that stuff? Well, what happens is it supports you in maintaining the high vibrational emotions easier. It makes it easier to feel good. It makes it easier to smile. It makes it easier to laugh. It makes it easier for the right synchronicities to show up in your life.
So David, how did you get the name Avocado?
It started out about a dozen years ago. A friend of mine had an idea for the book cover of our first book. And I was in an airplane, and I had in my hand, I had an avocado actually. and there was a really cute girl sitting across the aisle, and she had 2 oranges, and they were good oranges. I could tell they were organic oranges. So I said, hey, I'll trade you my avocado for your 2 oranges. And she started laughing at me. And then she picks up a pad on the chair next to her, and it was the Avocado Growers Association of California written on this like seating pad. And then her boyfriend comes back from the bathroom, and it turns out that his dad was the president of the Avocado Growers Association of California. Well, anyway, I shared with him the idea of our book cover, which was for me and the co-authors of this book that we had written to go into an avocado tree naked and then take a picture like, you know, like monkeys or something, and then that was going to be the cover of our book. Anyway, my cousin, who was part of that photo shoot, named me Avocado after that,
Nice.
and that's the name that stuck.
That's a good story.
That was cool.
That is good. There are no coincidences, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
In fact, you know, the whole thing really about being healthy. See, I'm not even really. It's like we're way beyond obesity, health. All that stuff just goes right out the window. It automatically is solved. Mm-hmm. All the obesity problems and health problems are automatically solved once we get onto real, powerful foods and herbs. And I've been on that track for so long that now I'm on the thing of like, how do we really tap into the highest levels of synchronicities, the highest levels of good times? And that is really what life is about. And what's fortunate about this is that you don't have to relearn the curve and go through eating, you know, going to health food stores and eating Bulgar wheat and suffering with 16 ounces of wheatgrass until you have projectile emissions out of every orifice, right? You know, suffering to get well. That's terrible. Who wants to do that? What we recommend is just eat what you want, as much as you want, with joy in your heart. And what ends up happening is once you start getting to more feeling, what feels right, you start realizing, whoa, oranges feel better than Twinkies. Avocados feel better than lard. You know, Dutch cheese isn't quite as good as macadamia nut cheese made by a super powerful raw food chef. And so you just start feeling that, whoa, if I have that, I feel good. And if I have that, I feel bad. And eventually, over time, just, you know, as things evolve, there's no rush, you will track yourself into what is really the cutting edge of the health technology we have today, which is the food we have. I mean, we have the worst food ever in the world right now, and we also have the best food ever in the world.
What would you say to those people who are just now getting turned on to raw food and just about to jump into it? What would you say would be a good advice for them to start with, or to ease their way into it so they don't go so extreme and then they're too extreme that they fall back and go the other extreme?
That's a really important point that you're bringing up there, and that is if somebody changes their diet too quickly, it's like a rubber band. Mm-hmm. You have to build habits over time. So what you would really want to start with is fresh vegetable juices, celery juice, celery carrot juice, something very simple like that. So you start putting that in your body. And then you start putting a little bit more of that in your body. And that's something that you'd be surprised how good it makes you feel, and it's immediate. And therefore you're inspired to go to the next step. It's kind of like once you take one step, you're going to take another one. It's much more likely you'll even take a third one beyond that. What's beyond that? Well, you can start looking at the organic section of health food stores and going, okay, I can eat that fruit, sprouts, I'll start eating more salad with my food. Organic food will become a way of life for me. And then eventually you can work your way into superfoods. I'm a real big fan of goji berries. And of course, the big gun, the one that everybody wanted to hear about, which is raw chocolate, raw cacao beans. This is
save the world.
This is truly a monumental discovery in the history of nutrition. It's monumental because you can have your chocolate now as much as you want and just loving every bit of it, and it's all good. In fact, it's likely that raw chocolate, the raw nut that all chocolate is made out of, might be the most powerful food in the entire world.
Wow. Cool. Are they starting to come around and find that out? Or has that been known for a while?
Well, it was known in Mayan times.
Right.
It was known by the Toltecs and the Aztecs. It was known by the Olmecs, the ancient peoples of Central America and some areas of South America. But it was lost in time, and literally that food was taken, it was processed into poison. I mean, 10 years ago, you talk to someone about chocolate who was in the health food world, and they go, oh, it's poison, I can't eat that. You know, and then outside of the health food world, there was all this like guilt, like I want to eat it, but I feel guilty afterwards. We have evaporated both those things completely. What's now happening is we're informing people that actually what you really want, which is the nut that all chocolate is made out of, called cacao, sometimes misspelled C-O-C-O-A, cocoa. I don't really like that word that much. Yeah. This food is a nut like an almond, but it's 100 times more likely to be eaten on the planet than an almond is. Meaning 100 times as many people eat cacao as eat almonds, but they don't eat it. Yeah. What do they eat? They eat a byproduct of it. Right. Something that's been through factories and the jaws of roaring machines. And what we discovered is that you just eat the raw food in its natural state and you know the truth. And it is a monumental discovery. In fact, I think it's the biggest discovery in the entire history of food. And we classify cacao in this category, which we call superfoods, which is really a good area for beginners to get into, because you don't have to go through all this learning curve again. It's like, let's just get right to the point. Things like goji berries, maca, which is a root from the Andes, cacao, some of the bee products like honey or bee pollen or royal jelly are super powerful foods. Spirulina, blue-green algae, chlorella, super powerful foods. Marine phytoplankton, what whales eat, you can eat that. Aloe vera, noni, which is perhaps one of the most powerful foods on the planet as well. You cut right to that stuff, all of a sudden your body goes, yep, this is what we want, here we go, something's happening, major changes go on metabolically, and it's just, it affects an amazing transformation.
Is the majority of your diet superfoods, or what are some of the favorite things you eat?
Well, I want to just say that in the early days, it was a lot of salad, because that's really the buffer. That's a great way to get into raw and living foods. If you have, let's say, a potato, you have a big salad there, so you have a nice buffer, something to help digest, and you get the enzymes from the green foods and the vitamin C and all the other great things that are there, like chlorophyll. Over time, what I found is I can't eat big bowls of salad anymore. I don't want to. I don't have time. So what do? I just get this blender out, throw all the smoothie ingredients in it, the goji berries, the cacao beans, put the coconut water in there, throw the aloe vera in there, throw the spirulina in there, put a little bit dash of sea salt in there, blend that thing up with maybe a little bit of honey in there, run out the door, and I have my superfood chocolate drink. It's like, it's heaven. It's absolute heaven. And I get to drink that and while I'm driving down the road going to wherever I'm going.
So for those who don't know exactly what a superfood is, can you tell us what constitutes a superfood, like what it actually does for the body?
That's an excellent question. A superfood is a food that's got a lot of tricks under its sleeve. So for example, lettuce is awesome. I mean, lettuce is keeping most people alive right now because that's the only raw food left on that cheeseburger, right? And even they're pulling that off now. But ultimately, we need food that's got a lot going on, all the little tricks of the trade. For example, let's look at the goji berry. The goji berry is a little berry. It's like a raisin. I mean, when I was a kid, I used to eat those little sun-made, chemicalized, conventionally grown raisins, you know, that were just soaked with all kinds of like larvicide, fungicide, and God knows what else, and then we'd blow it like a kazoo afterwards. Remember that? Anyway, we can feed now kids goji berries, which is a complete protein source, has moderate to low amount of sugar, and the sugars that are in there modulate and improve your immune system, have anti-aging qualities, increase vigor in youth and elderly people. It's got all that going on, plus it's one of the highest antioxidant foods in the world. That's where we're going. That's where the nutrition realm is heading.
Okay. So I wanted to ask you about something from your Naked Chocolate book. You had written in there that 80% of Americans are deficient in magnesium. And cacao, raw cacao, is one of the best sources in the world for magnesium. Would you elaborate on that and for our audience, please?
There is a huge body of research that's been done on chocolate, and especially cacao beans or cocoa beans. And what it's found is that cacao is the highest natural source of any major food in the world of the mineral magnesium. And this is probably the primary reason why women crave chocolate during certain times of the month. It's the main reason why chocolate is good for your bones, and that has been actually scientifically confirmed. And what we're doing is we're just saying, hey, don't get it in the processed form, get it in its original state. It's more digestible that way. What does the magnesium do? Well, one of the things that magnesium does, it goes in and it opens up cleansing pathways. So if you eat enough chocolate, it has a good cleansing effect on you. If it really is going to be the best food in the world, it's got to work on the real problems in the world. And the real problems in the world are not some war somewhere, it's not the economy, it's not crime, it's constipation. And, right? And so cacao moves everything out. That's what magnesium does. And in fact, magnesium deficiency causes everything to be held in.
Yeah, and I also was reading that a lot of neurological disorders, or a lot of ADD and ADHD and other neurological things are a cause of being deficient in magnesium. And eating chocolate will, change that for them. And I think I read that they saw a lot of changes in children that have eaten chocolate.
Yeah.
I love chocolate, so I can talk about that forever. I read your book a while ago. I sell cacao nibs like crazy.
Isn't it the best ever?
Yeah,
it's
I love
monumental. It's incredible.
Good for the teeth, everything.
Yeah. It's a great question and an important question. And that is it really true that brain disorders, ADD, attention dialed to another dimension, or ADHD, are these things caused by magnesium deficiencies? And there actually is a large body of evidence that indicates that that's true. In fact, ADD and ADHD have been noted for years as symptoms of a magnesium deficiency in the literature. So if you look up a deficiency of magnesium in your local library in a book on health, you'll find the same symptoms. So cacao works on your brain and nervous system because it feeds magnesium. It also works on the main issue in our culture today, because we think, what is going on in our culture? Is it cancer? Is it diabetes? But in fact, the number one killer in our culture still by far is heart disease. Guess what mineral the heart needs more than anything else? It's magnesium. And what's the best way to get magnesium?
Cacao.
Cacao for your heart, chocolate for the heart. So the chocolate heart idea and giving chocolates out on, for example, Valentine's Day is not just an old lost tradition from somewhere. It actually has deep symbolic meaning because cacao affects your heart and cardiovascular system. There's another thing about cacao too, and that is the antioxidants in cacao are the best thing for your circulatory system there is. And in fact, cacao is the #1 antioxidant food in the world.
So I know in some ancient civilizations, cacao, they knew the importance of cacao. And how do you think that they discovered that?
Well, it's interesting. In the Aztec Nahuatl language, the word for cacao was Yolotl Etztli, which means heart blood. And I do believe that by studying some levels of physiology and biology, they were able to figure out that cacao has something that really makes your blood rich. And now it might have been through sacrifices or something else. In fact, they used to give people a cacao drink or a chocolate drink right before they were sacrificed. And maybe it was to calm their nerves or something else, I don't know, but they probably figured that out that way. Anyway, it's been found that the ancient peoples knew that cacao was probably the most nutritious food in their entire litany of different herbs and foods to choose from, which is really impressive that they were able to find that out. Modern science has discovered that cacao is not only #1 in magnesium, it's very likely #1 in iron, it's very likely #1 in copper, it's very high in zinc, it's probably #1 in manganese, and as I said before, it's #1 in antioxidants. Now to have that going for you as a food is literally unbelievable, and it's probably why chocolate is the world's favorite food.
Yeah.
So now if we were just jumping onto this raw food trip and we were going to the grocery store, where would we start? What would we do? What kind of questions would we ask? And what necessarily are we looking for?
Okay, great. Let's start with fruits. We go in there, we've got to look at fruit, and we've got to have this understanding that sometimes fruits have been tampered with a little bit too much by human hands, and they can be a little excessively sweet, like seedless watermelon, seedless grapes, seedless banana. These things are a little bit too much sugar for most of us because we've hit that sugar button quite a few times in our lifetime. So therefore, let's look for things that are a little lower in sugar. Apples, for example, tart apples are a great place to start if you're sugar sensitive. Of course, tomatoes and cucumbers are really fruits. Avocado is really a fruit. And we can then start there and start playing around with that. I really recommend that if you really feel like you need to get a lot of food through your body, but you don't know where to go, low sugar fruits like cucumber are an enormously important and valuable starting piece. You could eat 3, 4, 5 a day. On to the next category, vegetables. It's a great way to do vegetables is to start juicing them. Celery juice is the basic juice, and you can have that done at your health food store or buy a juicer, or even better, people always ask me, what's the best juicer ever? It's the one in your cabinet that you bought 10 years ago that you never used. Get that thing out, use it till it breaks, then get a good one. So starting out with vegetable juices is really good. Again, celery, celery cucumber, celery carrot, celery, cucumber, parsley, carrot, simple stuff like that, and have a load of fun with it, and kids love that. Of course, the problem is who's going to clean the juicer, but that's another story. Also having salad. Make sure you have your spinach and your lettuce and your kale, and open yourself up to parsley in your salad, and just create some more unique salads. I have a friend of mine who's been a raw foodist for 12 years, and people say, how can you just eat salad all the time? And he says, I've never had the same salad twice. What a great statement.
Yeah.
Okay, the next thing is nuts and seeds. Nuts, you got to be a little bit careful with raw nuts. If you just eat like a whole jar of almond butter, or handfuls and handfuls of almonds or pecans or something, you're going to go nuts. That's why they call them nuts. You got to be a little careful because it's heavy. It's a rich food. But seeds are a little bit better. I recommend hemp seed and flaxseed crackers. This is a replacement for bread. And then you can also go to pumpkin seeds as a great snack food. I mean, I live on pumpkin seeds a lot of times when I travel. I just have a bag of pumpkin seeds, and that can take me days or even weeks on the road. And then the next thing, seaweed. Seaweed has all the original minerals intact. It's an original food. It's a wild food. How many wild foods do you think people eat these days?
Not many.
Right? 5,000 years ago, it was pretty much all wild food. Now it's like zero. And everything's heavily processed. If we get the seaweed in, interestingly enough, we get all the minerals, our appetite shuts off, our body goes, whoa, wait a second, our immune system can actually function properly. And we can get into a place where our thyroid starts functioning properly. Next thing is sprouts. I do this in the wintertime, in a cold climate. You've got to have some fresh food. You just sprout things in your windowsill. Really, really easy. If you don't know what you're doing, get something like Ann Wigmore's book, The Sprouting Book. Read something like The Sun Food Diet. There's just real basic instructions. You just sprout seeds in a tray and grow them, and when they get about that high, you cut them and you throw them in your salad, and you got some fresh food. Next thing would be herbs. I think we all are tuning into the idea now that herbs are really important for health and our immunity, and for just a general vibration of feeling good. Herbs are medicine, but they are also really high vibrational substances. Next category is something that, of course, is near and dear to my heart, which is what I do really live on these days, which is superfoods. And those are the bee products, the algae, the goji berries, the maca, the aloe vera, the cacao beans.
So herbs, what's the difference between fresh herbs and then dried herbs? And should we be using more fresh herbs in raw food, or are dry herbs are just as okay?
It's good. It depends on what kind of situation you're in. For example, like fresh oregano in the summer in a salad is absolute heaven. However, in the wintertime, you're going to be like, well, I don't know. We don't really have fresh oregano. And even the dried oregano, sometimes if you powder it down and then sprinkle it on a salad, it's good. But generally what I do is I have tea herbs. I have herbs that I just soak in water and then drink the water, which is really good. And then I have, of course, the fresh herbs in the summertime when they're available. Are they medicinally different? Not really, not really. Herbs, even in their dried form, if you make a tea out of them, are super powerful on the immune system, even in that state.
So where do you see the future of raw food going?
Well, I think it's growing by leaps and bounds all the time, because people are being driven into health food stores by pain, by fear to some degree, because the word is out that there are pesticides, larvicides, fungicides, herbicides, every kind of crazy hormonally altered ingredient, GMO stuff, all over the place, and it's in all these ingredients in foods, and people are a little bit concerned about this. So we're seeing a mass exodus away from mass-marketed food towards original food, so you're in control of what you're making. If you buy organic celery in the store, you know what you're getting. If you buy a Twinkie, there's 43 ingredients in a Twinkie. And probably every one of those ingredients has been mass processed and treated with every kind of heinous chemical possible. This is an awareness that is growing and growing and growing. I think the world's going in two directions simultaneously and very fast. One is towards more greed, hate, despair, war, famine. All of those energies are going that way on some train that's about to head off a cliff. And then there's a whole nother energy that's going towards more joy, more bliss, more happiness, more fun than ever before. And when you get onto live food, you start getting on the happy train. And you start feeling good all the time. And all of a sudden, too, you become disconnected away from being dragged around by everybody else's energy, because you become your own light. So you're more in control of your energy. So if somebody comes in with a bad attitude, it's like, whoa, that's their stuff. Let them deal with their stuff. That's not my stuff. And so raw food is a very powerful tool of consciousness, of becoming a more aware being that has more freedom.
And what are your personal future plans related to raw food? Like, do you have more books you're writing or retreats, or what are you doing?
I continue to do raw food retreats, and it's a lot of fun for me to do that because it gets me into yoga classes. Otherwise, I end up, traveling around too much. I don't get a chance to do much yoga. So I'll continue to do that. I'll continue to write books. What's a real passion for me in terms of what I do in my spare time, what my hobbies are, is super farming techniques. I've, for example, got 2 farms going right now, and what we do is we just massively use every technology that we know of to make the soil as healthy as possible to grow the most incredible food possible. Not only that, we use a little bit of alchemy on our water, meaning we spiralize our water before watering the plants. We are also working on playing music to the plants, and we know the effects of that from the great book, The Secret Life of Plants. And we're doing all that at once. Maybe it's the first time ever that's been done. But the goal is to see exactly how far we can go. What is the limit of the best food ever?
Great.
What are your views on biodynamic farming as opposed to organic farming? And where do you see the future of organic farming going as it emerges into the mainstream grocery stores?
I'm a huge fan of Rudolf Steiner. I've read tons of his material. I feel really akin to that level of insight into how nature works. Biodynamic farming, as developed by Rudolf Steiner, is an advance over organic farming. It's a very incredible insight into the subtle workings of nature. I hope that organic farming either goes towards biodynamic or goes down other routes. For example, rock dust and dilute ocean water, and some of these techniques we've found to get more minerals into the soil will just advance as time goes on, and hopefully the great organic farmers out there are really holding it down for us. It's tough to be an organic farmer in our world today. That they will get wind of these ideas, and eventually they will start producing even better and better organic food. It is already happening to some degree.
So you don't see the organics being in mainstream and starting to be in places like Walmart trying to get organics? Do you see that as degrading the organic, or do you see it being different, or do you see that as a more of a mass awareness awakening?
I see it more as a mass awakening. I see it more as a mass awakening occurring. Okay. There are movements afoot in factions of our government that are going on that train towards death, pain, fire, destruction, fear, greed, hate, all of that, that just will try to water down the organic standards, will try to slip GMO stuff under the organic standards. And that's not going to go away, but fortunately there are people who are conscious and aware of these movements and are stopping it. And I believe the organic standard is the great starting point for all of us. And yes, I think it's a great thing to have organic food in Walmart. I think it's a great thing to have places like Whole Foods out there, even with some of the predatory marketing that's going on. Hey, at least that's better than the way it was 20 years ago. And again, we see things improving at an alarming rate just as much as we see all the problems increasing at an alarming rate. It's an incredible time that we get to live in.
Can you tell us a little bit more about your book?
This book, I believe, is really important in the world today because I was reared on success literature since I was 14 years old, meaning like speed reading material, Tony Robbins material, Jim Rohn, Brian Tracy, Les Brown, all the gurus, Napoleon Hill, Earl Nightingale. I mean, I studied that stuff, Zig Ziglar, Norman Vincent Peale. I mean, you can't even believe how far into that stuff I got into. What I did with this book is connected, I believe, for the first time, that incredible, vast library of literature and connected it to what is really relevant today, which is you cannot be eating garbage and soda and achieve success. It's not possible anymore. That there has to be some sensibility about what we're eating. Not only that, that the whole success movement, which is really powerful in America and has attracted some of the most incredible minds ever, that is attached to a goal that we all agree on. And that goal is paradise on earth. That's what we all want. Like at this point, the mansion and the yacht really don't mean anything. Because, yeah, it's all great to have a mansion, and then, you know, you have DDT being sprayed on you. It doesn't really have any relevance anymore. So that's what this book has meant to me, and it's been broken down into different parts. So the first third of the book is a summary of important points of ideology, like how do we orient ourselves towards success. And then the second third of the book is actually all the dietary principles of raw food nutrition, transitioning your diet, dealing with detoxification. And then the last third of the book is bringing together the food and the success technology into a unique format of different specific pieces. I like the last third of this book a lot because it's really unique information. It's stuff that couldn't make it into a book normally because it's a little bit of exotic technology in terms of like self-empowerment, but it's in here. And it's kind of in the middle of this book, like at the end a little bit, because you have to read the whole thing to get there. And I did that on purpose. So only the people who are really committed will actually get to that part of the book.
So people just getting into raw food can read this, as well as people that are experienced with raw food? Both of them can gain something from reading this?
Yeah, the Sun Food Diet Success System is designed for everybody. And it was rewritten. I've probably rewritten this book 15 times or more. Because of that, I wanted to make sure that there's not something that's like too far out there, or not something that a child couldn't understand, or something that an adult couldn't understand. I wanted to make it accessible to everybody, and so I've turned it over to everybody. I've passed it into all kinds of people's hands to get feedback, and then this became the 6th edition as a result of all those years, 8 years of feedback. 8 years of being on the road with this book, and I'm really, really happy with the state that it's in right now, and I kind of like want to just leave it alone for a while, you know?
Good.
I look forward to finishing it.
Great, awesome.
I've gotten a little way in there. I look forward
It's really
to it.
exciting.
Yeah, we've got my journal. I've got my journal going, yeah.
I'll tell you, this whole thing about journaling is really important because ultimately, when you write something down on paper, it's like it gives it power in the universe. There's something about writing things down. If you write your goals down, your health goals, your weight goals, it activates a power in the universe, an invisible force.
David, I want to thank you for being here today, and thank you for doing the works that you do.
It has been an absolute pleasure, and I wish you the best of luck with your Raw show.
Thank you.
Thank you.